My name is Professor David Mendes Nassi, and I would like to discuss the problematic subject of negligence in medical care. Last year, I issued a new book that I called Who is Afraid of Medical Malpractice? I shall discuss the preface of the book. Medicine as a profession is concerned with the saving of lives and with human health. However, there is an alternative view of medicine that would suggest it can be dangerous. In the United States, medical errors were rated as high cause of death and of medical morbidity that are exacerbated by ill-judged diagnosis and or treatment. A medical error can be defined as the result of treatment of a patient, whether routine or following an incorrect judgment, who is erroneous in its outcome. The fact that an error is involved does not absolve the one making that mistakes from blame. He or she is considered responsible for his or her action. Taking an example from my profession as an orthopedic surgeon, I am involved in constant endeavor, and the very essence of such endeavor means that mistakes do occur, mistakes made both by myself and others. Malpractice in medical care is basically different from errors, and is, in legal terms, it is any medical undertaking or omission involving a violation of the duty of care and which has caused a patient to suffer medical harm. Medical errors are often attributed to the problem of overcrowded medical institutions and a lack of resources and budgetary controls. The medical malpractices that, in my opinion, arise from the cases presented in this book are not due to those causes. The malpractices ascribed to surgeons result from a breach in each surgeon enormous and uncompromising responsibility for their patient. Such responsibility begins with a deep understanding of the problem, namely the diagnosis, in explanation, in simple words to the patient and family. It continues with the precise planning of resultant treatment, and same responsibility then continues into the treatment period and beyond it, all the way to the patient's recovery and even after such recovery, to periodic medical surveillance. During the 50 years of my active career, I have gained much experience as a surgeon in a wide variety of orthopedic problems, in treating patients and guiding and instructing students, interns, and my fellow research associates. Over the last decade, I have gained experience in editing and writing professional medical opinions, an activity which has broadened my understanding of the circumstances that lead to medical malpractice. I have been able to recognize that the core of medical malpractice lies at least in one of the following 5 sins. First, a superficial and frivolous attitude that borders on lack of knowledge, lack of experience, and inferior surgical ability. Second, apathy and mental fatigue leading to neglect. Third, pride and vanity that contradict the basic rules of responsibility and empathy. 4. Disregard, which leaves the patient like a wounded man on the field of battle. Fifth, denial, which is the mother of all wrongdoing. In this book, all these scenes will be given vivid expression in the stories of medical malpractice lawsuits brought. We are all familiar with the Hippocratic Oath. Among any commitment a person can take upon himself, including personal loyalty to society, country, and nationality, the oath coined by Hippocrates, who lived some 2,500 years ago, and who is widely acknowledged to be the father of Western medicine, still stands unique. He was wise enough to recognize the complex mutual relationship that exists between a doctor and his patient, and determined that the doctor is committed to honestly and devotedly providing care to any person in need, be it friend, foe, or even bitter enemy. Committed to not abusing anyone requiring his help, and committed to being up to date with all medical advances at all times and remaining at the height of his professional ability. The tradition of the Jerusalem Hebrew University Medical School replaced the medical intern oath to the Hebrew version penned by Professor Halperin and based on the Hippocratic Oath. This version emphasizes three basic ground rules: knowledge, responsibility, and empathy, in the spirit of love your neighbor as yourself. An additional principle, taken from an era after that of Hippocrates, serves as the premier rule of those practicing medicine. First, do not harm. Primum non nocere. This principle is manifested in Israeli law in the Civil Wrongs Ordinance as the duty of care, and its violation in a medical context will be considered to be a medical malpractice. Writing about cases of medical malpractice is for me an educational endeavor, keeping the patient's problem in the forefront of my mind. I have always been surprised by cases in which a caregiver has treated their patient's problem superficially, often with a lack of any deep thinking that verges on gambling on the appropriate course of treatment. I was even more surprised by cases in which caregivers ignored problems arising with their patients during the course of treatment. As a general rule, doctors and surgeons view medicine as a profession with an air of divinity. They give their all to their work and perform it dutifully and wholeheartedly. For that reason, it is important I point out that the purpose of this book is not to cast aspersions, but to encourage thought and to direct attention to the doctor's calling, which has been the basis of his education. It is my ardent hope that a thorough reading of the series of malpractice suits detailed in this book will benefit any doctor, and not less important, will make it clear to every patient how important his or her active and well-informed participation is important from the very start of treatment. The book is arranged as a collection of individual cases. Each case can be read independently, though a thread of day-to-day conversation links them together. The characters in the book are all fictional. That being said, truth is stranger than fiction, as they say. And the events described in this book are typical of the reality of the world of medicine and law, which is why one can learn from them and absorb the necessary lessons.